I'm Leanne and I'm 15 years old. A very close family member of mine has bipolar. When I was younger, she struggled quite a bit with who she was and what she did. She struggled through addiction with opiates, and it was very hard for her. When she went through rehab, it started to help her realize herself, and I think that was the biggest turning point for her, is when she started to go to rehab and she started to get clean, and it made her feel better about herself. It made her feel a bit stronger, and I think that was that made us feel better for her as well. So I think that was the biggest turning point for her. With rehab, I think it's very helpful for, like, no matter what kind of rehab it is, that sharing your ideas and sharing how you feel is very helpful, and it helps you find sanctity, because you find that there's other people like you realize that you're not alone, and you feel stronger in yourself because you feel as if you aren't alone, essentially. You aren't isolated, and I think that would be a big turning point for anyone, and I think that it's very good to get involved with other groups to learn more about who you are, and it helps a lot to convey your feelings. My mom is a nurse, but she thought she knew enough to help my family member with her mental illness, but the addiction that she had, the family member had, was more for self-medication, I believe, from her mental illness, but it just got out of hand. But I think it's very important for family to try and go through things like rehab with people, to try and understand, to learn more about it, because it helps the person who has mental illness, it helps them feel understood because their family is trying to help as well, which is very meaningful, I think, to try and help. When I was younger, she did isolate herself quite a bit, which made it quite difficult for us to know each other. So that was probably very hard for her as it was for me. But then when she went into rehab, she went to a lot of these groups and she would come back talking to us. It would help us understand her, and bit by bit, these conversations we would have would help us to get more on a mutual understanding. And she started to isolate herself much less than she used to, and we saw more of her, and we went out as a family more often, and I think it made things much better and much easier for the both of us. When I was in middle school back in Colorado, there was this group called Allies in Diversity, and I think at that age I was having it was a time where it was still quite hard for me and the family member with mental illness, and the group, although it wasn't necessarily targeted towards mental illness, it was an anti-bullying group, but it was more about being comfortable with who you are and having a safe place to talk about things. And I think that, although it didn't necessarily teach me things on how to help the family member, it gave me more confidence just within those kind of things, within helping. And then when I moved to England, I wanted to create that kind of space again, because I realized that other people need those spaces, because no one really knows what's going inside anyone else's head. And sometimes people are afraid to get help, which can cause them to lead to self-harm or anything just as bad as that. But if we prevent them from going to those ends. If we provide them a safe space at a young age, it will help them grow as a healthier person. And I really wanted that for other people. I really pushed. And I think people who do have mental illness have a very hard time in school because of social stigma, because of how they're expected to be treated. They're treated as aliens, they're treated as weird or different. And I don't think anyone deserves that. I think they actually deserve a safe place.